Good morning. So I've read some comments on the YouTube channels, and I decided to hold a very short, I would say, basic video, in which I will say nothing new at all. Not only that it's not new, but also that it's not really. I mean, only a little bit of it is actually. Specific to my own circumstances. I mean, it's kind of like a very general theoretic video, extremely general theoretic video that I think that I feel that that something need to be said, because there is now a ton of new people all over the world, of course mostly related to intelligence communities, that are kind of like showing more interest on what's the deal with the aliens. So are there aliens here, alien there? Presumably since the beginning of the 20th century, or even before, or even since the Egyptians. So what's the deal? And and why do they all look the same? So and how are we under attack? What do they want from us? Are they here to kidnap our wives, or to take our brains, or to take our gold, or so what's going on? So let me answer very, very simply. First of all, it should be said that Star Wars is depicted between species, different species, is depicted in most of your science fiction books and movies and TV series. These kind of wars are impossible, or almost impossible, because of a very simple fact that I'm not saying nothing new. Humans know these things long ago, because when species meet, it's never in equal terms. There is always the one that is much more advanced than the other. There is no equality between sides that are meeting for the first time in the space opera. What we call first contact, which is incredibly important, I would say, concept. And I have a whole new theory, not only theory, but also I would say philosophical stand and moral stand about it. And I wrote about it. I've written about it extensively in the past, and maybe I will find time to speak about to reiterate some of the stuff that I have to say on the matter, in video form, because it's incredibly pertinent to my own life. But and it's very important and interesting subject. The idea of first contact between civilization. It's not only between aliens; it also happens in the Earth many times. Famously, when Europeans met the place that they're ultimately colonized. But so this is an incredibly important subject. But it should be said in the space context, it's never first contact is always. This was also true in Earth, actually. But to a much larger extent, it's true in space that first contact is not done between equal sides. One side is always far superior to the other technologically and hence for military. Mostly, space wars are mostly possible and mostly done and have been done in the solar system. This one between motherland and the colonies, something like the American War of Independence, for example. Something like that. This is possible because the two sides are basically the same, and they have the same technology, and they are very close. And also, it should be said that many times there is something to fight about. There is the obvious interest, because many times they have the sides have very different political problems and political agenda. Mostly, I mean, the older, like, I mean, the motherland, the people are, they are very numerous, and they don't have much land, and like they fight over land, and they have a very, I mean, complicated economic system, in which the governments are very dominant, because the governments are old and very complicated. And on the other hand, the younger side, they have much more land, and they have vast land resources. And this comes with all sorts of like other problems, advantages and problems. And they have much slimmer governments, because they didn't have time because it takes time for a government like to start like being larger. And I mean, generally with time, governments become more complicated and more dominant. And it's not only in socialist governments. It's true even in right-wing governments, that, I mean, just with time, because they just go with time. I mean, and they don't, and they rarely, I mean, reduce in size. It's like a monster, like the Leviathan. I mean, it was known since, the idea of the Leviathan is that the state, it was kind of like, it was presented by Thomas Hobbes like hundreds of years ago. It was already known back then that the state is like a Leviathan. It's like a monster that's only getting bigger with time. Even if it's right wing, like, I mean, certainly if it's like it's left wing, but even if it's right wing, it's only getting bigger and more complicated with time. So the young one, they don't have like a very big government, and they have ton of land, and they are worried of other stuff. Like, I mean, their problems are, I mean, due to the fact that, I mean, they depend for many things on the old, like, on the motherland, but they also hate them because they don't want to pay taxes to them, and they don't like their patronizing behavior, and also they don't like their military, which is almost always far stronger. This, in some, I mean, of course, I mean, yeah, every person with a little bit knowledge of history can like identify the history of North America in this story, but this is a universal story, because it just, I mean, it lies on, in facts of reality. So yes, in this situation, Star Wars are possible, because we have two sides that are almost equal in technology and very similar, and they have like very, I mean, they have substantial things to fight about. And these things happened in the past in the solar system, and it was discussed in this channel briefly. There's still more to be said, but the history of the solar system was shaped to some extent by such a war. I call this war the Titanomachy, of course borrowing from Greek mythology. It happened long ago. What I want to say now is that you need to understand that apart from this kind of war, Star Wars are almost impossible, because there will always, I mean, there will always be races that are far stronger than you that will enforce their order upon you. There are so many, the universe is huge, and faster than light travel is possible, and people are watching you for a long, long time. So there is a limit to how much you can misbehave, even as a species that is full of ego, more than the average by far, I assure you, for sentient creatures, and even for species that like to fight, more than the average. Even though, yeah, I mean, you didn't invent anything. Like, other species also like to fight and they have the ego, but I mean, humans are not the crown of creation. They are, as I said, in the best, when they behave the best, they are like maybe in the D tier of the sentient species, like in the tier list. But I mean, there will, you need to understand, there will always be someone which is much, much older than you and much stronger than you, and that anything that you, all your military might is nothing compared to them. Like, I mean, it's just absolutely nothing. And so, I mean, there is a limit to how much you can misbehave. Like, ultimately, Yes, I mean, they will allow you to, I mean, to do whatever you want, because I mean, it's not, they don't want to babysit races, and there are huge ethical problems involved. All of this related to the issue of first contact, and I will, as I said, I described it in the past, and I will maybe speak about it sometime soon. I will reiterate some of the stuff. But yeah, I mean, there are known objections to intervention. So they will allow you to, I mean, to do your thing, and they will even allow you, to some extent, to drag your conflicts and your warmongering culture into space. I mean, if it's only somewhat limited to your own solar system, like in the scenario that I've just described of a civil war between motherland and colonies, which is possible. But I mean, not much more than that. After some time, they will just stop this nonsense. They will not allow you to drag, I mean, more races into this hell. And if there are there are more than one race, more than one species in the same solar system, which is the case now, then you can be sure that, I mean, they will intervene when you try to subjugate them, I mean, or to enslave them. So in general, Star Wars are not possible the way that you see in movies. And in general, there are two kinds of species that you can meet in space. One that are much inferior to you technologically, and that your main, like, I would say, like, point in the agenda of like how to deal with them is how not to enslave them, and how not to cannibalize them, because that's, I mean, your natural tendencies. And the other type is that is much more superior to you, and your main point in the agenda would be, it's the same as, like, you know, the same point in the agenda of, like, how ancient cultures in Earth treated their gods, which means how to appease them so they will not annihilate you. I mean, yes, I mean, it's about that. Like, I mean, how not to make them too angry so they will not, like, I mean, wipe you off the land, or, I mean, just strike you, I mean, with all the, you know, wrath. This is, I mean, this is theoretically the situation, and it's also practically the situation. This is also the situation in practice, because you are in contact with two species. One, the Venusians that you enslaved for a long, long time, and the others are the Cherubs that are much superior to you, but they are almost never show themselves. They almost never show themselves because of the problems of first contact and the problem of, like, intervening too much. But they do intervene. Now, starting the 20th century, their biggest concern is how you treat the Venusians. So this is the issue since the beginning of the 20th century until now, and now more than ever. But it wasn't always that the issue, actually, because it was not always the relationship between the two, the Venusians and the Terrans, like the Earth people, were not something very, this was not an important issue, like, throughout the history of the Earth. It was actually a very minor, like a very minor or even bizarre aspect of human history. Non-important at all. But they did intervene. They did it very gently by sending representatives that lived like humans, that were completely, committed to being human, like to live inside societies, wherever they were, in various places, and they acted like humans. They were, for all purposes, out of the fact that they had demonstrated, like, amazing health and resistance to diseases, but besides that, they were completely human. Nothing besides this. That very good health that can be attributed to luck, or to the the favor of the gods or something like that. Besides that, they were humans for all aspects. You cannot know who they were. Maybe Newton was one. Maybe the prophet Ezekiel was one. You cannot know. Maybe the people that wrote the Ramayana were like that. You cannot know. You cannot know. I mean, there is no way for you to know, because they live just like humans. They were just like humans. Now, it should be very clear to you. The idea that there is an alien invasion to Earth is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not true, and it cannot be true. There is no such a possibility, and I will just explain why. So, I mean, even if you are very new to the whole issue of the aliens in Earth, even if you don't know nothing about it, and it's completely new thing to you, and you're feeling like panicked of what's going on, you need to frame your understanding of reality in the realm of what is even possible. If it's not possible, it's not happening. I mean, you don't need to query into theories that are impossible, because if it's impossible, it's impossible. It's not possible. You need to, to inquire only like like the realm of what actually can even be possible, and then to judge if this is actually what's happening, and how can you react to it. Alien invasion to Earth is impossible. Is impossible. What does it even mean? Who are the invaders and what should they do? It's impossible. It's impossible. What is happening in Earth is exploitation of another species for a long, long time. And during the last generation, or even more than one generation, it's mostly done to the same people. There aren't many like immigrants from Venus, even though there were still immigrants, because there is more than one gate between these planets. The fact that these people are living in hide in Earth is not because they plot against you. It's because this secrecy is forced upon them by the various governments of the Earth, and most of all the government of Israel, the state of Israel. They forced it upon them because they want to use them and abuse them. Because they want to use them and abuse them. It's not their interest, and it was never their interest. It was always the interest of humans that wanted to exploit them. And any crimes that they committed, these aliens, and they committed many crimes, mostly against myself. I was the subject of their cruelty a lot, these aliens. So I don't say that they are righteous or all righteous or something like that. No. But it was always clear to me that that all these crimes, should be put in the correct context, which is the context of the crimes of Israel against me. That all of these aliens are fascist instrument of the Israeli country, and it was always like that. And it was always like that. So yes, they tortured me significantly, these aliens, but this is just an aspect of the torture of the state of Israel against me. The issue is the crimes of Israel, and also the crime of the rest of the world that supported this subjugation, because they had material interest on the matter, and this kind of material interest was actually changed throughout the years, and it was discussed tremendously in this channel. It wasn't always the same material gain or material or points of the agenda. And again, it should be said that many times during the 20th century and during the 21st century, much of the knowledge regarding this alien was just forgotten, because it was always limited to the intelligence services of the world, and these people don't like to share information. So many times they just forget stuff, and many people died. So so it was lost, and the situation was changed, and I discussed it at length. But it was always true. It was always true that the aliens are the subjugated people, even if they are cruel, and even if they commit terrible crimes. And again, I am throughout all my life a terrible victim of their crimes. A terrible victim of their crimes. But still, I say it without, I mean, it cannot even be theoretically possible that they act like as kind of like, I mean, a spearhead of an alien civilization in Earth that wants to do something bad to you. It's not theoretically possible, and it's impossible. It's impossible. Because either they belong to a civilization that is much superior to you, and then they don't need to do any kind of like special operation in Earth. If they want to destroy all of you, they'll do it like in the press of a button. Or they belong to an inferior race that is subjugated by humans, and they forced to live in secret, which is of course the case. This is theoretically the only possibility that is actually, you can even think about, and this is actually true. Now, another thing should be said very, very clearly. There is no reason, even theoretically, why should aliens like this would want to live in secret in Earth. It's not their interest. Maybe they were actually, brainwashed to think that it's in their interest. I mean, they can be wrong as well. I mean, they have limitation of their personality and intelligence. So, I mean, maybe some of them think that it's within their interest. But, I mean, they can think all sorts of things. But, I mean, theoretically and in practice, it was never their interest to live in secret. The secrecy is a huge limitation on them and part of their subjugation. And it caused them huge amount of like problems and health issues and humiliation and what's not. The secrecy is just always the interest of the state that wants to use them. And when I say to use them, it's not only like to use their special powers, like superpower agents. Even though this adds some kind of like, this also was some kind of aspect of how they were abused, because they have special abilities and special like nature, and it was abused by the Israelis and by other nations. But the abuse is in the general term is wider, should be considered in a more like wider scope than the question like, do they have like special powers? The abuse is inherent to the situation where you incorporate another civilization or another culture into your own without admitting it. Because what you actually do when you do such a thing is you create a hybrid. The concept of hybrid was very important in this channel, and I spoke about, and even like in this channel started 10 months ago, but I spoke about hybrids like at least 3 years ago, and it was featured in my art since 2 years ago. I mean, the idea of hybrids, and I mean, why I have the problem with hybrids, and I of course, I connected it to the historical issue, or to also mythological representations, or that belongs to the Titanomachy or to closed topics, like the Titanomachy itself, in the Greek culture, and also like Genesis 6 in the Bible. And I've always said that it's personal, it's a personal issue, because the hybrids are always those that I have the most personal problem with, because they always hunt me and hate me the most. And there was always the question of what exactly are hybrids, because Venusians and Terrans cannot have babies together, at least not now, at least not at the current technology. They cannot have hybrids, in the simple sense, are impossible. So why do I have this problem with the hybrids if their existence, at least in our time, is impossible? So why? So this is so this question was featured a lot in this channel, and it received different answers throughout the time that I speak, in the last 4.5 years, because the hybrid problem is not. I understood just from the beginning that when I say hybrids, I do not mean to biological hybrids. The mother and father are different, because it's impossible, at least in the current situation. When I say hybrid, I mean different things, and I admit that it was actually the concept of hybrids, like this, synthetic body and natural clay head was developed a lot in this channel, mostly to refer to people that act or live within two law systems or two natures together. And these creatures are almost always, they are cruel and lawless, because they do not accept the limitation of like one nature, of one law or one society. They try to win like everything, to get the best of all the worlds. And I mean, in the process, they destroy like all the other other people, especially those that do not understand the situation and think that they live in just one system or one law or one nature. Because I mean, it's always an abuse. This kind of hybridization between natures and laws and system of laws, this kind of abuse is predicated on the fact that there is another society that is like that you are parasite on their table, because they act according to their own nature or their own law. But you presumably because you are part of the secret powers of the state, the intelligence agencies, whether you are human or alien doesn't matter, but you both of them are hybrids. Like both the people of the intelligence services of Israel and the aliens, they were both hybrids from my point of view, because they lived and they still want to live not subjected to one law or one nature, with the limitations and the advantages that every kind of like a nature or system of law grants you. But they want like to be able to get the best of all natures, and in the process they loot or they steal and they rape and they murder the people that are not private to the situation, and from their point of view they live according to one nature and one law. So in essence, the ultimate answer to the question of what is the hybrid and why do I have such a problem with hybrids is that the hybrid is the state. Israel as a paradigmatic example, but not only Israel. This is the hybrid monster. This is it, what you see here. So this thing is, featured a lot in this channel. Certainly throughout like the last couple of months. It's an actual creature. It's like you have many videos of it in this video. It's not a fictional thing. It might raise uncomfortable feelings by the viewer. You see like a background which is of red oil paint, but the picture itself, the object itself, it's not done yet. I'm still working on it. It's a new one, but but it was featured in other paintings long ago, not so many photographs. It's a real thing. So the object is drawn with acrylic, like bright acrylic colors over oil, which is not typical. It's all, of course, after it was a little bit dried, and also so it's like atypical choice of colors over backgrounds. And the object itself is, you don't really understand if it's mechanical or biological, because it looks, the main feature of the object is the gears, which are paradigmatic for mechanical equipment. But the gears are also quite a little bit like curved, like in a biological way. And also it seems like this guy it has a tail and all sorts of antennas that are more related to the biological realm. So what is this thing? So first of all, this thing is real. I call it the bicycle microbe. I created it myself, engineered it. And yes, it's scary. And also this depiction is scary because you don't really understand what is this thing, a machine or a bacteria. It has two natures. Just again, I would say this is a real thing. It's a bacteria, and it's got many interesting features. One of which is that it can eat radioactive isotopes and sustain upon it, which is really awesome. It got many other stuff. It can also communicate with other bacteria. Basically, they have shared consciousness, which might sound amazing if you do not know anything about like this channel, but I mean, this actually is predicated on the most important like entity that is, I mean, actually the photograph of this entity is in the thumbnail, or I mean, in the like in the thumbnail of this channel, like the yellow circle, which I call the Nero, which is a type of robot. This is the main subject of this channel. So this is made out of them, so they can they have collective like sense. So this bacteria also is it uses like the Neros to also have, I mean, it's like, I mean, they share, I mean, they get the property of the shared consciousness from the Neros that they are made of. So it's a very interesting bacteria, and you will hear much about it like in the near future, I assure you. But I mention it now as an example of the problem of hybrid creatures, because they have two natures, and they try to get the best of all worlds. I mean, on the one hand, like, I mean, yes, they can eat like processed uranium. So I mean, they get the best of like, you know, the technical world or mechanical world, but they also can multiply and, I mean, and disseminate themselves by I mean, the same way that biological microbes are, I mean, are infecting biological creatures. They are like, I mean, they play unfair game. I mean, if they were only microbes, you could have like treated them with, I don't know, alcohol or whatever you do for the coronavirus, or, you know, antibiotics or whatever. But I know they are made of metal, so they are machines. But if they were only machines, they I mean, they were subjected to the problems of like being a machine, which is that they were not independent, and I mean, they always had like the problem of like how to get energy sources, and they couldn't multiply easily. All the things that are, I mean, related to the world of machines. But these guys, they have the best of the world of machines and the world of like biological creatures, and they are scary. I mean, they are scary. Just, I mean, you know, by the first, like, even like crude depiction, they are scary. And yes, they are scary. And this is the state of Israel, and that's why they keep the aliens in secret. They are the one that keep the secrets about the aliens. It was never the interest of the aliens. It was the interest of the Israelis and other nations that cooperate with the Israelis, because they want to keep swimming in the ocean like a hybrid ocean. Because I mean, if the aliens were known, like, and publicly discussed, I mean, ultimately, they were incorporated into the society and into the law system of humans, and they were, and either, I mean, there were possibly two options could have been like enacted. Like, either, I mean, they would have lived completely different, like, you know, isolated place in Earth. They would have like had their own land with like their own rules, which was isolated from all the rest, or they were part of society, but society would know, like, I mean, what is their nature, what kind of like opportunities, I mean, and special strengths they have, but also what kind of disadvantages they have, and all of this was incorporated into the laws of humans. So so actually, what would happen is that there will be one nature and one law, and everybody would be subjected to it. But Israel never wanted it to happen. They wanted to have presumably one law system that is only takes into the account the Homo sapienses, but at the same time to widely use and abuse the aliens. And this abuse is possible because they live under the system that does not take them into account. Because of that, that is the basic fact that all the abuse is predicated upon. That the Israelis can and do in a wide scale, not just one or two, like huge part of the Israeli society, all of the people that are related to the intelligence and the security sectors that are huge part of society, all of them know about the alien, and they abuse the aliens, and they abuse the aliens, and they abuse the nature of the aliens, and the abuse is possible because the law does not take that into account at all. Look at me now, I'm hunted by the police, by the law systems, by whatever, but I know I'm under arrest for more, like almost a year, for a crime that I didn't commit at all. I'm subjected to unbelievable cruelties, all of which are due to the fact that the law does not take into account the obvious fact that I'm not Homo sapiens, and that I have all sorts of like huge abilities, and that people around me know about it and prey upon me They do everything that they can, including the judges and the lawyers and social workers. Including them. They all also take part in this party. They want to take a bite out of you because they also know about my special nature. So they take it into account, they abuse it, and they prey upon it. While at the same time, they play the sick game of this is like a law system with the, everything is so, transparent. We have our own laws and you have our systems. And everything is so, formal. You deserve to have a lawyer. If you don't have money, a lawyer will be, just now, this lawyer tried to contact me. Just now! This little liar. This little scumbag. We will give you a lawyer that will be financed by the state, so you will have, a fair procedure. What kind of fair procedure? According to what law? To a law that doesn't take into account my existence? I cannot even speak about my existence in any kind of formal law proceeding without being hospitalized in mental institution. If I don't want to be locked in mental institution forever, I must never speak about these issues. Certainly not as part of a legal proceeding. A legal proceeding in which the actual participants take part in the predatory act of eating me alive. This is the state of Israel. This is the hybrid. This is the hybrid. And that's why the cherubs, which are the superior species, as I said, there are two species involved, the Venusians that you abuse, and the cherubs that are the superior ones. And that's why the cherubs are now frying the earth, but I assure you that will not be done with frying. Frying is only the beginning. Asteroids are on the way, invasive life forms are on the way, this bacteria is on the way, and I assure you that it will be a prominent issue in your agenda, wherever you are in the next couple of years, because this bacteria is amazing, and I assure you that you will learn a lot about it in the very near future. This is why all of this happens, because how you treated another alien race.